Hello once again, everyone, and welcome to yet another figure study, where we are still appreciating the form in Transformers. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at Revenge of the Fallen Sideswipe. And this guy is one of the very few movie figures that I have where I can truly appreciate the vehicle mode. Because, I mean, yeah, I'll get into all of the downsides in a minute, but this car is kind of beautiful. Just the fact that it's like silver all the way around, the really nicely contrasting dark blue windows that go all the way around, which again I've said is kind of a rarity. Just, silver on the rims, which I always really appreciate. It's like there's zero. Okay, almost zero. You've got the red for the tail lights here, but there's practically zero color variation in the actual car's paint scheme. Like it's all silver. It's all silver, and then there's some red. But it's just really nice, and it works really well with this really sleek car design, and I really like these incredibly dark blue windows. It's a really nice just contrast to the shiny silver. So yeah, it's a very nice looking car mode. The of course main issue being that it is completely covered in panel lines, like just all over the place, lines, lots and lots of lines. In most cases, the lines, like from certain angles, like here, it kind of works with the actual structure of the car. But then as you kind of go up to the top, you can see it's a little bit more obvious. But yeah, like certain angles, it looks okay. Unfortunately, I had to get mine secondhand because I, picked him up like years after he was off the market. But you can see he's got kind of a little bit of paint rub there, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it's a really nice looking car. Underside is kind of whatever, but overall very nice. And even though he's covered in panel lines, like there's a decent amount of little details in here. Like there's looks to be the vaguest of hints of some kind of logo there. Got the side mirrors that I'm not entirely sure if they're just like bent improperly on mine or if that's how they're supposed to be. They don't really look particularly effective. But yeah, soft plastic side mirrors. Some actually surprisingly nicely detailed tires and hubcaps. Got a little place for a license plate there and the exhaust pipes there. And this another little logo thingy there. There's a pretty decent amount of detail on this guy, and of course the official logo on the front there, or the shape of the logo, and the grill. Yeah, I just have to say this is just a nice looking alt mode aside from all the broken up panel lines. Really I really like the simplicity of it. It doesn't really need to have a ton of color variation on it. It's just silver. Very, very, very pretty looking silver. And again, love the dark blue for the windows. Another issue that I've noticed, though, aside from the paint rub in the back, is missing some silver paint on one side here. Like you can see there, it's just like one big blue bit of plastic, and then flip it around, and that's supposed to kind of differentiate the front from the back windows, and doesn't really do that. It's kind of like but whatever. Small production error, and honestly, you don't really notice it unless you're looking for it. But it's still a shame. But yeah, I mean, he's a really, really awesome looking car, I have to say. I really dig it. Now onto the robot mode. Sideswipe in his robot mode, and there is some variability here that I'm going to deal with in a minute, but he's not bad looking. He's, of course, mechanically, he does have some issues, like the feet not being that super easy to balance and stuff, but aesthetically, actually quite like his quite like his robot mode. He's got, a little bit of the silver from the vehicle mode is visible, but not a whole lot. They did carry a little bit through with the thighs here, but for the most part, he's a bit of a more dull gray and a little bit of like a gunmetal gray. But it's nice. It actually breaks up the immense amount of silver that was in his vehicle mode. And I actually quite like how he's got the silver on the sides here, but then this nice stripe of darker leading into slightly lighter silver and gray, kind of, not silver, but like gray going down the middle here. It looks really neat. It actually balances pretty well with both the shape and the color of his sort of, if you want to call them his pecs and his feet. It makes an interesting balance. And then, oddly, there's this little bit of dark blue for his kneecaps that you don't see anywhere else, which seems entirely out of place, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, he looks good. It's got the nice silver head, which I'm just now noticing, and I'm not sure if this is something that happened recently or not, but one of the fins of his head just got bent back. It looks like it's still connected, like it just got snapped. I think that must have happened fairly recently. That stinks. Oh well, I guess we'll just call it battle damage. But anyway, he has a pretty nice looking head. I mean, it's a movie Transformer, so he's got slightly odd, overly gritty looking head, but it's not bad. I don't have any particular affinity for Sideswipe as a character, so I don't know how much of a potential screw up it is compared to like his G1 character or comic character, but yeah. And then you got the Autobot logo, which something that I neglected to mention, but in vehicle mode I thought that was interesting, how there's no visible faction logo anywhere on him in vehicle mode, but then when you transform him, it's right there. It's just it's interesting. Yeah, he's got the funky chicken leg thing, which I honestly never really minded at all. Like, if they're going to differentiate themselves from the cartoon, they may as well just go all out, right? So yeah, he's an interesting looking bot. I actually, despite the kind of annoyance of the mechanics, I actually like the fact that his feet are just wheels. It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting design decision to me. And yeah, he looks cool. And I also have to say, like many other people, I am quite impressed with the flip around attack blades. And I don't know, it's just like, I find it incredibly mechanically clever, as well as aesthetically clever, how you've got like these giant sides of the door that are kind of look like arm wings, but then you just scissor them around. And the way they kind of, like the way that they're made, the way that they're angled, when you bring them together this way, they actually make a lot of sense as a blade. Like the angles sort of line up better in the front, and it just, I don't know, it's really interesting how they take like these two shapes, and just by flipping them around, they suddenly make something that makes sense as a weapon. And I think it gives them a bit more of an imposing silhouette. Now, the thing that I think is interesting with Sideswipe, aside from just the wheeled feet and the overall funky shape, and the fact that for once it's the back of the car that becomes the torso instead of the front. But what I think is really interesting is his backpack here, because this thing is so widely variable. You can do so many different things with it. You can angle it all kinds of different ways, and this can completely change his look. And I really, really appreciate that they have that option. Like, you could, if you wanted to get it as out of the way as possible, you could hang it down and, have it look kind of like he's got bug wings or something. You can, one of the things that I've messed around with is angle it up and kind of pull it around. No, wait. No, it's... Okay. I'm trying to remember how I do this. You angle it up this way, you can actually get the hood up over everything else, and then it just kind of clips, not clips, but it settles down over here, and it actually, in my mind, gets most of this kibble out of the way. Let's flip this up. This is always a little tricky to get the logistics of it, but it can be done. Oftentimes easier than how I'm making it look. But yeah, like tucking that around like that, it almost, like, it doesn't make the, the backpack or kibble invisible, but it works. And it also, in a way, almost kind of makes it look like he's got a little bit of like shoulder armor, which I think is really cool. And that's typically the way I like to have him displayed, just because it gets the kibble out of the way and makes it easier to fit him on a shelf. But I even kind of like making it more pronounced. Like taking it, flipping it around, and flaring it out more, so that it almost looks like, banners from like a samurai warrior banner or something. Like just give him these big old silver wings. Yeah, I like just how variable these sections are. It really allows you to just kind of play around with how you want him to look. And it can drastically change his silhouette based on what you decide to do. And I really, really like that about him. I still generally prefer doing the the tuck them around and onto the shoulders bit, just because it cleans them up a lot. But yeah, it's surprising just how expressive a couple of weird little shoulder flap things can be. Settle back there. There we go. So yeah, Revenge of the Fallen Sideswipe. He is honestly really cool. I've seen like the Dark of the Moon Sideswipe, and I just didn't particularly like that aesthetic, even though he has like the easier to balance on feet. The look of this guy is fantastic to me. He's really neat. He's weird, but weird in all sorts of nice ways. And you do get a fair bit of not customization options, but just like, you can fan mode him in a lot of different ways, just because of how variable the weird bits of car on his back are. I really think he's cool. I love the silver. I love the fact that he's mostly gray and silver. Really, the only complaints that I have with him are almost entirely mechanical. Like, I can't really think of much in the way of aesthetics that I have a problem with here, aside from just the blue kneecaps that don't really match anything else. Like, I guess in a way it sort of carries into the blue that you can see on his back there from the windshield, but it's not the same tone, so... But anyway, yeah, Sideswipe. He's actually pretty awesome looking. So, that has been my look at the Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe, I guess, class Sideswipe. I'm going to try and get better about mentioning figure classes when I do these, but we'll see how long that lasts. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As per usual, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Any combination of those three would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.